Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi, folks. Cesar here. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show tonight. In fact, we recruited the original host of this show, my dear friend, Mark Levine. He's going to be here for the full hour, sir. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
We have a lot to go through, sir.
We do.
Let's start at the global level.
Okay.
The U.S., how does the world see us now versus just after World War II? I mean,
for 80 years, the United States was the leader of the free world. For 80 years, it was the United States that defended democracy against dictatorship.
Amen.
For 80 years, it was the United States that other countries looked to as a beacon of freedom.
We set the standard.
And while we had certainly problems internally, certainly up through the 60s, at least internationally, we were the ones who did the Berlin airlift. We were the ones who started NATO. Harry Truman started NATO. The world looked to us to defend free people's democracy against Russia, against dictatorships. That's over.
Yeah.
80 years is dead.
Yeah.
As of, let's see, was it Friday?
Yeah, this past weekend. All that changed.
The President of the United States surrendered to Russia and said, we will defend dictatorships against democracy. We will help the evil empire conquer Europe.
He wasn't alone.
And Ronald Reagan is doing flip-flops in his grave because this was something the conservatives and liberals agreed on, that we would support free peoples against the evil approach. And here's the thing. I've been thinking a lot about the 1940s, the first America First movement. A lot of people don't know, as many do, but not everybody knows that the 1930s, there was a huge America First movement that supported Nazi Germany, that said we should not get involved. And I was thinking how much more reasonable their arguments were than Donald Trump's were. Let me explain. Obviously, I would have opposed Hitler, I would have supported fighting them. But the people at that time were arguing the Nazis are very powerful. We will lose a lot of American lives. It's a very difficult war to fight, and it was a very difficult war to fight. Here's the thing. Russia is not only not the greatest military on earth, we are that. They're not second, they're not third. I actually don't think they're fourth or fifth, maybe sixth or seventh. We can easily take Russia. NATO can easily take Russia. They're very weak. They're particularly weak after invading Ukraine and, frankly, getting their butt kicked by a tiny country that wasn't expecting invasion. And the Ukrainians, through their fortitude, through their heroism, through their courage, have managed to stop the Russian army. They've occupied 20% of Ukraine, but no more. They didn't get to Kyiv.
So why did the president and the rest of the Republican force capitulate?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that Republicans, as of 2 months ago, had completely the opposite idea. Marco Rubio strongly supported Ukraine, right? Republican senators did. You might find one, Rand Paul of Kentucky, who didn't, but every other Republican did. John McCain strongly supported. John McCain wanted to protect the country of Georgia when Russia invaded, when George W. Bush was president in 2008.
John McCain, who wasn't really a war hero because he was captured.
Well, according to Donald Trump,
right,
Mr. Bone Spurs, yes, that's correct.
So
it's important to understand that Russia is much, much, much weaker than Nazi Germany. So it's not like we even surrendered to Hitler.
Yeah.
It's more like we surrendered to Mussolini, or maybe we surrendered to Kim Jong-il. We surrendered to a very, very weak dictator who, don't get me wrong, has killed hundreds of thousands of people in Russia and Ukraine, but could not hold a candle to the United States military, or even I think the English and French militaries, and we'll talk about that.
So real quick, so when you use the term surrender, you're talking about our values. You're talking about the things that define who we are as a country.
Yes. So okay. President Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet. Whatever Vlad wants, Trump says, yes, sir. And it's very interesting to think about why that is. Yeah. My personal belief is that the Russians have some kind of compromat on him. Kompromat. This is a very old KGB term. It's been used by the Soviet Union for decades. We know that Donald Trump went to Russia. We know he stayed at a hotel in Moscow. We know that the cameras are full. That hotel is full of cameras. We don't know exactly what they have on him. I think they're blackmailing him. I also think possibly they're just giving him money. I don't know. And frankly, we can't investigate because the president has removed the power of investigation, of course. But for whatever it is, Donald Trump, and this is unique because this isn't a Republican value. Donald Trump is uniquely doing whatever Vladimir Putin wants. So rather than have a negotiation between Ukraine and Russia, he's dictating Russia's terms to Ukraine. He's saying, okay, Putin wants this, you do it. So he's calling the elected leader a dictator, and calling the dictator, he's not going to call names.
He doesn't remember he called him that, by the way.
Well, but now he does.
Okay. So he went back to...
So to understand Donald Trump, you have to understand that truth is merely transactional. There is no truth or lies. He may know what's true. He may not know what's true. It doesn't matter. He's going to say whatever lie suits him at the moment. It doesn't matter whether it's true or false. The thing he got mad at for that Volodymyr Zelensky did, and I think the whole thing was a setup. I think it was a trap in the Oval Office. He got mad because Volodymyr Zelensky was correcting him. So at first he said, well, when you were invaded in 2015, and Zelensky said very quietly it was 2014, and then he corrects him again, no, it's 2015, as if he's telling the leader of a country that was invaded what year it was. And J.D. Vance said, well, it continued into 2015. Well, it continues to this day.
Yeah, it didn't stop.
No, it did not stop.
Right.
But more than that, we've seen where Donald Trump just lies to people. And when he lies, he does it purposely to see whether you accept it. This is actually, frankly, it's a Hitlerian trick. He writes about it in Mein Kampf. He writes about the big lie. And his point is once you accept a big lie and you don't fight back, a little lie, then you'll accept a bigger lie, you'll accept a bigger lie. And so when he tells a big lie in front of Republicans, they won't dispute it. He says 2 + 2 is 5. They say, yes, sir, 2 + 2 equals 5. It always equals 5. It always has equaled 5. No, it equals 7. Yes, it has always equaled 7. Both the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of France, when Donald Trump told lies in front of them, quietly, with respect, corrected those lies. Zelensky also quietly, with respect, corrected those lies, and J.D. Vance claimed to be offended. Basically, what Trump is saying is, I trust Vladimir Putin. I trust him completely.
He said that in his first term.
Well, that's right. Even though he's broken every agreement he's ever signed. People forget, in 1993, the United States, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom signed an agreement. And it was an agreement that took away Ukraine's nuclear arsenal. And in exchange, the borders of Ukraine, all of it, Crimea, all of the east, Damascus, all of it, would remain inviolate. And Ukraine, I'm sorry to say now stupidly, signed that agreement. They trusted Bill Clinton. I'm sure Bill Clinton meant it when he signed it, but he didn't warn him that we could elect a demagogue who would actually support a fascist dictator over an elected Democrat. And, you know, part of me thinks that, well, about time they get those nuclear weapons back. I mean, the agreement was broken. Maybe the UK and France can slip some in. That would be interesting. I don't know that I want that or not. But the point is that then Ukraine signed another agreement, the Minsk Accords, that basically said Russia, after conquering Crimea, would just keep the lands that it conquered. They broke that one too. So they've broken every agreement they've ever signed. And again...
And that was his point, by the way.
Exactly.
The correction. Yeah.
Right. But J.D. Vance's point is, we are more powerful than you. And if we tell you to lie, you will lie. Right. And you will do so just like we attacked Canada, just like we attacked Mexico, just like we attacked Denmark. The United States used to be a country that put its values first. Right. We were good because we did good. What Trump is trying to set up as the United States, we're the most powerful. We're the biggest bully. And if we tell you to lie, you will lie. And if not, we will make sure you're tortured and killed, which is exactly what Putin is doing. In other words, Trump wants to be Putin. He wants a dictatorship. That's why he loves Kim Jong-il. That's why he loves Xi. Right. That's why he praises dictators and hates Democrats. And I don't mean the party Democrats, I mean democracies, right. Democratically elected leaders. And so we've never had an American president like this before. Every other American president at least pretended to support the Constitution of the United States, pretended to support the rule of law, pretended to support American values.
Well, they at least read the Constitution.
Well, that's correct.
Right. So
that's correct. And what
that's
we find,
the first qualifier.
Well, what we find in this one is a president who not only doesn't know what's in the Constitution, but is regularly violating so many clauses of it. I assume if the Democrats take the House, and I think they will in 2 years, he'll be impeached a third time, maybe a fourth time. His lawbreaking is actually worse than in his first administration. And his first administration is way worse than anything Richard Nixon ever did. But we have this media environment where people believe the lies. And honestly, I don't think we've ever come as close to George Orwell's 1984 as we are right now, where basically everyone's gaslighting. And you have people who believe all the Fox lies and believe QAnon and believe that Democrats are molesting children, when actually, let's all remember, because not enough people talk about, Donald Trump has been found by a court to have sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. There's at least 20 other women who say they sexually assaulted him. He's admitted to going into a 16-year-old's dressing rooms at the Miss America pageant. He's been convicted of 34 counts. We've never had a felon president before. And at least other felons, sometimes they apologize for what they've done. No, he proudly has committed his felonies.
So what was it then that allowed a country to elect that person? What is the underlying? The foundation is missing. Something, the values.
It's a good question.
So
I would argue.
Twice, by the way. They elected him twice. So.
Well, the first time, let's recall that Hillary Clinton beat him by more votes than he beat Harris in the popular vote. But we have the Electoral College, which I have tried personally to change, the Virginia legislature, and I think obviously that's a remnant of slavery in our Constitution that I'd like to get rid of. But yes, he did. How did 40, 45, maybe 49.9% of Americans choose this guy? I would argue it dates back to the media, and specifically to social media. If you look back to when I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, Walter Cronkite came on TV and he said, that's the way it is. And that's the way it was. And everyone right and left trusted Walter Cronkite. And you might disagree on the war in Vietnam, but you don't disagree that what he says is true. You just disagree about whether it's worthwhile to fight or not, and we certainly had those disagreements. With social media, we've come to the point where too few Americans understand critical thinking. They just, Fox tells them and they accept it as true. I don't accept anything anyone says is true. I'm always looking it up, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and I wish Americans would do that now, but they don't want to. And maybe we'll talk about that.
So we will definitely talk about that and my theory on why Donald Trump was elected twice here. Folks, stick with us during the break. We'll be right back after these public service announcements.
Nice going, Spencer. I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We? Go to the door, ask for the ball back.
Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Dad.
See ya, dude. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice life. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rigged out fight. Nothing very nice. Holy smile. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health
at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, folks. Cesar here, back in Studio C with my very special guest, the original host of this show, Mr. Mark Levine. Sir, thank you for being with us. Got a little surprise for you. I think the team has queued up the original intro, if I'm not mistaken.
The president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
We do have secret
Wow.
weapons. That is not what
Man, I'm
America's
fired
all
up.
about. Go to Mark. 5, 4, 3, 2.
That is awesome. I love seeing that.
that was my intro.
That was great.
When I began this show 21 years ago.
Has it been that long?
It has been that long.
800
George Bush was president.
Jeez.
And I was upset about his violation of the Constitution. I got to tell you, he was a saint compared to this guy.
You miss him?
Compared to this guy,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Well, again, thanks for being here. Tonight is the 808th show, so good legacy. Let's get back to what we were discussing before the break. So we were talking about how could a country twice elect Donald Trump.
What's your view, Cesar?
So I think, quite frankly, it goes back to something that really scared a lot of people. And for me, I look at it a little bit differently. It was the historic election of the first non-white person as president. You started, at least I started to hear, I want my country back. Back from what? What exactly was taken away? That for me started kind of this thing getting a little bit, that weed that was always there started to really grow. And the more and more people heard that, they connected with it. And Donald Trump, that birther crap, he rolled right into the White House on that.
The other thing, though, that's important is that not enough people focused on the truth. And again, I blame, and I can't blame the whole media, because media is a plural noun. There's good media and bad media. But when Donald Trump said a bald-faced lie that Barack Obama was not born in the United States, he was laughed at, he was mocked, but at the same time,
but
people,
it took root.
It took root. And, you know, again, I'm sorry to say, but it goes back to Adolf Hitler, because he talked about the fact that if you make a little lie, people know you're lying. You lie about your age, you lie about you forgot your wife's anniversary, something like that. But when you make a big lie, you know, that the QAnon crazy conspiracy top lies. There's a non-existent basement of a pizza parlor where they're raping children, whatever it is. That it's such a big lie that people don't really think that you might be that bold to make such a big, obvious lie. Right. And Trump has lied his entire life. His whole life is about a con. The only money he's made is via a con. He's the guy who was his own salesman and pretending to be someone else. His entire life is a con. And I don't know that people realize that. I mean, do they know that The Apprentice is a television show and not a documentary? I mean, it really concerns me, kind of the state of education, the state of critical thinking in America. But I also think that people want to be on their team. And they're willing to just, you know, I look at this with sporting events, right? And I'm not a big sports guy, but if you're a big Patriots fan, then Tom Brady did not deflate those balls. He just didn't, because you're a fan. You don't look at the evidence, did he do it or didn't do it? Like a jury, you look at the evidence. No, it's just no, because this is my team and my team can do no wrong.
I think you're touching on it for me. People want to associate themselves with the majority that may provide them opportunity to win or be successful. So I'll associate and go along, I'll get along and go along with that group, because that'll spread to me eventually, right? I'll be successful.
It's hard to fight again, I really recommend reading, if you haven't read in a while, to listeners, George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah, just
because Winston, in that book, and I haven't read it probably in 30 years, but I remember it. It's such a powerful book. He tries to just simply keep an open mind, just to keep sane, and he's constantly being told untruths. And what you find, and what they find...
By the Ministry of Truth.
By the Ministry of Truth, that's right, who teaches that, let's see, that freedom is slavery, war is peace, and ignorance is strength.
Right.
Which... Actually, that's almost exactly what Donald Trump teaches, right? Ignorance is strength. I love the uneducated, he says. War is peace. He says if Ukraine wants peace, the peace of surrendering to a country that wants to destroy it, to occupy it, to kill the people in it. Freedom is slavery. I mean, he talks about being free while he wants to enslave all of us. Even, and we'll get to the economy, but the fact that he is encouraging his people who are often uneducated and often suffering in America. Working class folks really have it hard these days. They've had it hard actually for a long time in America. And he wants to take what little bit they have, tax them with his tariffs, and give that money to Elon Musk.
Wait. Tariffs are being paid by Canada, Mexico, and China.
No.
Come on, he says that all the time.
Well, he may, but it's not true.
So why is it that people believe that?
I don't think they know what a tariff is.
Okay.
I think most Americans know. Honestly, it's an 18th, 19th century term. We haven't relied on tariffs really since the beginning of the 20th century, with the beginning of the federal income tax. Tariffs tend to be used by very small countries who are trying to grow, as we were in the 18th century. At the end of the day, if you buy a product, the money has to be paid. So what happens is you go to buy a car, and it costs 25% more. If they don't pass that cost on to you, they take a loss, and their shareholders won't be very happy. They have to pass it on to you. And then what happens? Well, what about? They say, we just buy American. No. If foreign cars...
We don't manufacture anything.
Well, we do. We have a few cars factories left in Detroit and other places. If imports are 25% more, then American companies should take the 25% just to keep the prices up. So inflation goes up, and what we found is, and people criticize President Joe Biden all the time, but he took the massive errors of the COVID era. And remember, 1 million Americans died under Donald Trump's mismanagement of COVID. That's not something that you almost ever hear on the news. It's a fact. Anyone could look it up.
It was
1 million Americans died.
It was going to go away when it got warmer. It would be like nothing ever happened.
And this didn't happen in other countries. Other countries had a far, far lesser rate. We were some of the worst, actually, in the industrialized world. When COVID happened, when there was a supply shock, inflation went up. And what you find, and listen, we had supply shocks in the 70s. I have a degree in economics, so I've studied these things. That causes...
I was going to bring that up in our next segment.
Oh, okay. We can bring it up in the next segment.
Go ahead.
Well, but it causes both unemployment and inflation to go higher. And poor Jimmy Carter suffered that with... We had an oil embargo in the 70s, and both unemployment and inflation went up, and that's why, Ronald Reagan came in 1980. What's interesting is Joe Biden lowered inflation and unemployment way below what Ronald Reagan ever achieved. Ronald Reagan used to talk about the misery index, where you can add inflation and unemployment. At the end of Joe Biden's term, we had inflation close to 2%, between 2 and 2.5%, unemployment below 4%. That unemployment had not been beaten in 70 years, not since the 1950s, when we had just people coming after. We had few people after World War II, and were making things, and unemployment was lower in the 1950s. For 70 years, Joe Biden gave us the lowest unemployment. He gave us inflation close to 2%, and he gave us actually the greatest decrease in child poverty since Lyndon Johnson, since the Great Society. Now, in just 3 months, we have inflation close to 4%, so almost doubling. Unemployment is going up. Jobless claims are going up. We'll talk about some of that's due to Elon Musk, but not all of it. And the most scary thing is the Atlanta Federal Reserve just came back with growth. Growth under Joe Biden was very strong, 2.5%, 3%, sometimes 3.5%. We went from 2.5% growth last quarter to this quarter. It's projected to be negative 2.5%. It's projected to be a recession. This just came out this week. And it's not just a recession, but a severe one. The only one that's that's been worse in the last 30, 40 years was the Great Recession that George Bush had in 2008. We're in for some really hard economic times, and what I think, and it all circles back to the people who voted for him, they're going to suffer the most. You look at farmers. So rural America, 70, 80% voted for Donald Trump. Yeah. Rural America is really going to suffer because when these countries fight back with their tariffs on our goods, well, we're the great breadbasket of the world. Yeah. If we sell wheat, we sell agricultural products, soybeans, all over the world. They're all going to fight back. Those prices will go up, and those farmers are going to suffer. And so it'll be very interesting because we've already seen people. You may have seen this woman on CNN, this 24-year-old woman who worked for the National Park Service, and she voted for Donald Trump because he said that he would do in vitro fertilization for free. Now, of course, he hasn't done that. He hasn't talked about it since the election. But that's why this 24-year-old woman voted for him. Not only did she not get IVF for free, she lost her job. And now her family can't afford to have a child and can barely pay for their mortgage. She may be evicted, and she regrets her vote. And what happens when you have someone run with these enormous lies is he promises the moon, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to end the war on the first day, and we're going to make America so great that no one's ever seen before. All this ridiculous. People who are not tethered by truth can say anything they want. I promise all of you will be billionaires by tomorrow. You can say anything you want.
But how does a rational person accept that?
Well, the question is whether people are using reason, rational, right? Using reason, or whether they are using emotion. And you brought up, Barack Obama, our first African-American president. And I think there are a lot of people who, like sports team, think this is my side. And my side is white people's side, or my side is straight people's side, or my side is men against women, or my side is people without college educations rather than people with college educations, all those snooty people that have college educations. Right. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with being a straight, white, working class guy with a college education. Nothing wrong with that at all. And no one's out to get them, but their lives are harder because they don't have a college education. And it's very easy to blame other people rather than blaming yourself. And I'm reminded of that great quote by Lyndon Johnson that it gets almost up. Do you know in 1960 what he said? Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm pretty close. He said, if you tell, are we about to run out of time?
No, finish.
All right, really quick. If you tell the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he'll give you anything you want. You can pick his pocket. Hell, he'll empty his pockets for you. Lyndon Johnson, 1960.
So let's put that strategy on hold, and we'll come back and discuss that right after this other public service announcement.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
I got a creak in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes.
Right?
I mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you...
to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, folks. Cesar back here in Studio C with my special friend and original host of this show, Mr. Mark Levine. Again, sir, thank you for coming in. Let's finish up on this Lyndon Johnson
Yeah,
quote. It's deep.
Ever since I discovered that, I thought it was fascinating. Even more so that he said it in 1960.
Right.
You know, you could see someone saying that today. But in 1960, Lyndon Johnson, who was, after all, a poor white man from Texas, who grew up very limited means, understood that there are people who just want to feel better than someone else. Right. And so, you know, you could say, well, it's racism. Well, of course it is, but it's actually deeper than that. It's the need to feel, people want to feel they're a success even when they're not.
Yeah.
And so, it's a shame because this country and the whole idea of the American dream, I think, is to see other successful people and want to be like them, and that's part of it. But it's to do it through your own hard work, not by stepping on other people.
Not limiting others.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to limit others to be a great success. I just heard Warren Buffett the other day talking about tariffs. He said tariffs is basically a declaration of war against other countries, and it's a massive tax on everybody. And I think, well, this is a man who made his own. So he wasn't like Elon Musk stepping on everybody. He made it of his own. And there's nothing wrong with looking to even rich people and wanting to be like them, but not by stepping on other people. You don't have to step on other people to get ahead.
Yeah. And for me, what's still missing is make America great again. When? When is the contest?
You know who first said that? It wasn't Donald Trump. It was Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
And I think it's about pre-Jim Crow. I think it's about this.
So blacks and browns were here.
I think it's about this Leave It to Beaver world of the 1950s, which is black and white in at least two meanings. Where you know, everyone lives in a small town. It's an all-white family, and black people don't exist, and brown people don't exist, and gay and trans people don't exist, and women know their place. It's a world that never existed because all these other people have always existed. And I think if you're secure in yourself and who you are, you welcome others' success. Sure. You want everyone to play a role in America. I mean, my great-grandparents were immigrants. Your ancestors were immigrants. You know, 99% of this country has ancestors who were either immigrants or came here on slave boats. I always say the only people who have a right to complain about immigration are Native Americans. They have a right to complain, but no one else does. And we all came from humble beings. And you know, but sometimes people like Donald Trump, you might call them nouveau riche, they were born into wealth, and they suddenly think that everything belongs to them. They're just me, grab.
And why can't you have been born into wealth?
I don't even think Donald Trump thinks that. I think he thinks he's better than everyone because his dad made money, and he doesn't give a damn about any other person. I mean, even his kids he doesn't seem to like very much, and he treats them better than all of Americans. In fact, the people he respects, think about who he respects. He respects Vladimir Putin, Xi, dictators, and he respects people like Elon Musk, the richest person on earth, because he respects money and power. He doesn't respect values or goodness or brotherhood, and all those things are just words for him that he can just change on a dime.
Yeah. Well, let's put that extraction of profit out of any system as much as you can without any empathy. What's happening to our federal workforce here?
Well, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. So the goal of most Americans is to have their jobs and live their lives and maybe raise a family and do good work and live a good, happy life and have some values, and maybe they're religious values.
Real quick, some people are calling federal jobs not real jobs. Okay.
Well, wait till they see more plane crashes. Wait till they go to the Grand Canyon and it's closed. Yeah. Wait till they want to get a passport and it takes 6 months instead of 6 weeks.
Or you're expecting your IRS refund check.
Or you're expecting your Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid check. The Republicans have said now they're going to cut Medicaid. Now what they say, it's really funny. They won't say, we're going to cut Medicare. No. They say, we're going to cut $1 trillion from this pot. And the pot has $1.1 trillion, and $1 trillion of it is Medicaid, actually, in this case. It's a little bit less than that, but it's the majority. You cannot physically cut what they've promised to cut without cutting Medicaid. And so people are going to lose their health care. And suddenly, a lot of Trump voters are going to be like, wait, where's my money going? And it's important to understand it is going to line the pockets of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It's important to understand that they are personally profiting from what they're doing.
Is that efficiency?
So Department of Government efficiency actually is costing a lot of money. Because one of the things they're doing is they're firing people with a lot of experience. And then they're going to have to. In fact, I just saw with air traffic controllers, after firing a bunch of people that had been trained, now they're asking retired people to come in. Well, they're going to want more money because they retired, right? They don't want to come back. So it's going to cost more money to get people who maybe don't have as good eyesight as they used to. It costs more money to bring, after they fired the nuclear engineers. Nuclear engineers are not a dime a dozen. They're much more expensive in the private sector. So it's very expensive. But it's important to understand that Elon Musk is purposely lining his own pockets. He does business with the United States. He gets hundreds of millions of dollars for his rockets on SpaceX, for his satellites. And he's purposely fired all the people that have oversight. So he is literally taking your money, your taxpayer money, and lining his pockets with it. In fact, he's the richest man on earth. He's gotten substantially richer, $100 billion richer, just since Donald Trump put in charge of the federal government. And I'll tell you who else is profiting. Donald Trump. He has a stock. You may have heard of it. It's called Truth Social. It's a worthless little company. It's a company that loses hundreds of millions a year while making a couple $1 million, mostly because it's giving out hundreds of millions to Devin Nunes and other people at the company. But what it's doing is Donald Trump owns half the stock. Now, the stock is not worth the cost of a small house, but he's using that as a bribery vehicle so that people, and the people he's stealing from are his own people. He put out a meme coin, right? And it raised billions of dollars.
The cards.
Who do you think bought that?
Of course.
Who do you think bought that? His supporters bought that, and particularly if they're working class people, they lost a lot of money. It reminds me of the woman who gave up her pills so that the preacher could get his third Lear jet. Right? They are the ones who are suffering. Just like more of his people died of COVID than Democrats, because more of his people said, "I'm invincible. I won't get the virus." People like Herman Cain, who attended Donald Trump rally and died because of it. So his own people will suffer, and I think as they do, some of them will recognize that they've been conned. I'm reminded of the woman, you may have seen her on January 6th. Who went into the Capitol, believed everything Donald Trump said, stop the steal, was convicted, was put in prison for a few months, and she actually refused to accept Donald Trump's pardon because she knows now that he lied to her. And she's a very brave woman to do that. She's had death threats because when you tell the truth in a room full of liars, they have to kill you to stop you. And that's why people threaten to do that.
Wow. Let's focus on the impact of the federal worker layoffs, then economy, not just in the D.C. area, but across the country.
Well, first of all, it is across the country. Now, don't get me wrong. It definitely hits us here in Northern Virginia the worst.
It's huge.
In D.C. and Maryland, it's definitely going to harm our economy. But first of all, before we get to the people's lives who are being wrecked, we need to recognize that federal workforce does a good job. They talk about Social Security. Less than 1% of Social Security checks go to the wrong person. You can't find a business that has that low an error rate anywhere in the country. The federal government has the lowest error rate. And all the other stuff they're making, by the way, is all lies. What I'm waiting for is that brave reporter, and listen, let's face it, brave reporters are being kicked out of the White House because, how dare you ask me a good question? But he says to him, where's your evidence of that? Oh, well, a woman's 300 years old. Really? 300 years old? Because, we didn't exist 300 years ago. Now, it may well be, I think he's making it up, but it may well be that someone born in 1964, it got transposed to 1694, and the woman exists, and somebody, transposed the numbers, and it's no harm, no foul. She deserves the money. But there is this idea of this massive fraud, the reason why Trump and Musk, I call them Elon and Felon, right? Ellen and Felon, because we have the convicted felon, Elon. Ellen and Felon think there's all this fraud because they themselves commit fraud. They understand fraud. No one has committed more fraud that I know of than Donald Trump. Hundreds of millions of dollars he's defrauded. That's what a New York court found. Don't take my word for it. Hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a guy who conned people out of his buildings, he's a professional fraudster. So in his mind, any big business must include fraud because that's all he knows. All he knows is fraud. Elon Musk famously doesn't treat his, what he did with Twitter. These are people who are used to stealing. And so they think the federal government's stealing. It's not. I mean, can you find mistakes that are made?
That's the difference between a corporate for-profit entity.
That's correct.
And what government is supposed to do.
That's correct. And Bill Clinton, to his credit, in the early 90s, he did form a commission to look at waste, fraud, and abuse. And they carefully looked at it, and they found some, I think it was like $30 million that was wasted, and they dealt with it. Musk hasn't found a single thing, not a single thing. Meanwhile, he's totally ruining the lives of federal workers. So he's saying, say 5 things you've done or you've been fired. Oh, but that's really optional. Oh, and then you have people who I don't even trust, people like Kash Patel leading the FBI saying, don't answer that, don't give away state secrets. What I think their goal is I think Musk wants everyone's private information. There's a lot of power. Our data gets sold all the time. And think of the power in Russian hands. Think of someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who I believe is a Russian agent, because she's been supporting Vladimir Putin, the dictator Bashar Assad in Syria for a long time. I think she's going to hand over secrets right and left. But again, according to Donald Trump, Russia is our friend, and England and France and Ukraine are our enemy, which again is very weird to think that way. But I think their goal is to steal all our private information. And think of just the power. Think about if the Chinese got a copy of our entire federal workforce and who they work for and 5 things they did, right? Think about the power they would have to blackmail, to influence, to spy on our government if they simply had that org chart, which Elon Musk would readily provide. They haven't thought these things through. It's all performative. So when Musk goes up there and says, I found this, I found that, and the other, where is the press saying, prove it?
Right.
And if you can't prove it, say, Musk, I understand you lied to us the other day. What do you mean I lied? You still haven't provided evidence. We assume everything's a lie.
That assumes people are interested in the truth. And that's the problem.
I always hope that, Cesar.
Yeah, that's the problem. Folks, we'll be right back after this final service announcements. Hang with us.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Temple. You might have seen me on TV where I help folks turn their houses into dream homes. But forget construction. Parenting is the toughest job there is. So when you need help or advice, turn to the parenting experts at Boys Town.
I was afraid of that.
Well, guess it's time to get you fixed.
Your pets will start fooling around sooner than you think.
Go on, get out of here!
Accidental litters lead to millions killed in shelters each year. Help prevent more. Fix at month 4.
Food. It nourishes, brings us together, and adds flavor to life. That's why it's important to wash hands, surfaces, and fresh produce. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood separate from ready-to-eat foods like fruits and vegetables. And cook to proper temperatures using a food thermometer. Enjoy. and refrigerate leftovers within 2 hours. For more tips on safely preparing foods, visit homefoodssafety.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, folks. Cesar here, back in Studio C with our final segment and our special guest, the original host of this show, Mr. Mark Levine. Sir, thanks. Let's talk about the very dark weed that's still out there. This fear of the different, fear of them. Let's talk about DEI. Let's talk about immigration, mass deportations.
Well, first of all, it's important to understand what a switch this is for just the whole American idea. I mean, when I grew up, we talked about Emma Lazarus's poem on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." And I very proudly knew the history of my great-grandparents that came here with less than $20 to their name to make a life in America. And I remember my own modest roots, and when I meet immigrants to America, I love that they're here.
It's humbling.
We are unique on the planet.
Right.
Every other nation is based on some kind of ethnicity, some kind of language, some kind of people, some kind of tribe. We are the only country with people all over the planet, the most diverse, and I actually think that's why we're the strongest economically, because we have saunas and Korea barbecue and jazz and just the whole culture of Japanese culture and African culture, all these mixed in, Latin American culture, and that makes us strong. That's why we're so powerful, because we're not set in one mindset that you find, I don't mean to pick on Japan or France or Sudan, but people who have this sort of one mindset, and we have so many people from different backgrounds that we have to think outside the box. That leads to creativity, that leads to economic growth. And the other thing is that the people that Trump wants to punish are the poorest. So he's ready, for millions of dollars to allow.
Weakest.
That's right, the poorest and weakest. He doesn't want to fire some engineer. He wants to fire a hotel maid. He wants to take away from the people who break their backs picking apples or picking anything, carrots out of the ground. The thing is, even if you have no compassion, and I don't think Trump has any compassion, these people are why our food prices are low. These people are why it doesn't, think about how expensive hotels will be when you can't get maids anymore. Think about the people who take out your trash. Do you want that job? Well, if Americans don't want that job, they're gonna have to pay them a lot more, which leads to a lot of inflation. And that's the economic argument. For me, it's just a question of where's your heart? When Donald Trump married 3 separate immigrants. Melania was not legally in this country. She broke immigration law.
That's different.
She broke it. Well, she was a model, right? So if you're a model, you can break immigration. The laws don't apply to kings and models. So when you think about who he's after, he's always out to attack weak people. So trans people. We gay people have largely made it. Trans folks, there are fewer of them, and it's harder for people to understand someone who's different. And so he punishes the weakest. I saw a statistic the other day that more than 80% of trans people have considered suicide, and a majority have tried it at least once. This is a very weak population.
See, it's cruel.
It's cruel. And he wants to fire the only African-American generals and women generals. And just because they can be great. So what's fascinating about this whole attack on DEI, there's a name for it. It's called Jim Crow.
It's called racism.
It's called racism. It's called racism, sexism, homophobia, anti-immigrants, xenophobia, you name it. What it says is it's okay to be racist. He wants to teach white Americans it's okay to be racist, it's okay to be sexist.
That's what great again means to me.
Yes.
And that's the big issue.
Go back to before Jim Crow.
Go back to
before
when
civil rights.
These people were not seen. They didn't come to the table.
That's right. He's fine with white immigrants. He's not fine with brown immigrants. And the sad thing is that the people who come to this country are doing the exact same thing that my ancestors and your ancestors to just trying to make a better life. Some of them are escaping persecution.
Yes.
Sometimes economic privation. What's going on in El Salvador is awful with the gangs there. But the thing that hurts, that makes me the angriest, is the people seeking asylum, like the Afghani refugees.
Sure.
So they stood up in their own country, thousands of miles away, against the Taliban and supported the United States. You know how risky that was? And being promised that they would have a safe home here. And they leave everything and they come here, and now we're going to revoke. And here's the thing, none of this is legal anyway. The asylum law is the asylum law. Trump has no right to, he needs to read the Constitution of the United States. It's a shame he hasn't read it. He pledged to uphold it. But it says that Congress makes the laws, not the president. And Congress has said these people get asylum. So it's going to be up to the courts, and I hope we can trust the courts, to uphold the Constitution to stop this. And that's actually where I see some hope. I actually think we can still stop this.
I don't think he understands what we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, means. It means a constant state to me of progress. Yeah. Change.
Well, and there's always be fits and starts. And, you know, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The famous quote by Martin Luther King, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice."
Correct.
And the only problem I have with that quote, not to attack Dr. King, is that it doesn't just bend by itself. We bend it.
Oh, yeah.
We pull it down. You and me and the people listening to us.
For it.
You absolutely do. Nothing ever comes to us. Maybe for Donald Trump, everything was given to him on a silver platter. Maybe for Elon Musk. But the vast majority of people, you have to fight for your rights. Democracy, as Ben Franklin said, is ours if we can keep it. And if we don't keep it, it goes away. And I can't tell you, and this is long before Donald Trump, I always reminded people of the fragility of democracy. And they'd be like, oh, it can't happen here. And then you look at what happened in Hungary, democracy became dictator. What happened in Turkey, democracy became dictator. Russia, for 6-8 months, was a democracy.
Promising.
You know, Yeltsin was on its own way democracy, went back to dictatorship. It's happened in country after country, and of course, famously in Germany, which was a democracy, the Weimar Republic, and then became a dictatorship. So there are patterns here. And Masha Gessen, a really powerful writer who I highly recommend, talks about that what Donald Trump is doing is the same as what Putin's doing, only Trump is doing it much, much faster than Putin did. Our descent into totalitarianism, our descent into dictatorship is going much, much faster. And yet, still, we can stop it. The fact that you and I can freely talk right here on Fairfax Public Access Television
for now,
until our license is pulled, because I've criticized our king felon, means that we're still free, and that's how it worked in Russia and Hungary. So they started cutting back on the press, just like Trump right now is kicking people out of the White House pool who ask him tough questions. That's how it starts.
So let's draw the line here and no further. Virginia. Let's let Virginia be the first mark.
Virginia is our first way to fight back.
Right. So
people are saying, oh my God, how am I going to live through Donald Trump for 4 more years? And then other people are saying it's just 2 more years because we can take Congress back in 2026. All that's true. But in 2025, this year, this November, Virginia and very few other states, New Jersey, I think, Mississippi. There's just only 2-3 in the country, and usually Virginia's the most important.
We're the bellwether.
We really are. Yeah. And if we elect Democrats in Virginia, we did it. You just go through history. You could see that we had strong elections in 2007, and then Barack Obama in 2008, good elections in 2011 and 2012. We had bad elections here in 2015, and then we got Donald Trump in 2016. We had good elections in 2019. We won in 2020. Virginia has always led the way. You just look; it's amazing. Whatever we do, and unfortunately, we had we elected Glenn Youngkin almost 4 years ago, and that led to Donald Trump. But here's our chance to turn it around.
So here's definitely, I believe Democrats should. I will put a call out to not only Democrats, but independents and Republicans that respect the rule of law.
It's important. It's important.
That's what defines
There's
democracy.
not much I agree with Liz Cheney on, but I do agree that she respects the Constitution of the United States.
Correct.
And also...
But that's how it should be.
Well, of course that's how it should be. Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill would argue all day, and then they would go out to have drinks later. That's how our country used to be. You know, when I was a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. I worked with Republicans across the aisle. I don't know if I worked with my colleague Matt Ferris, a Republican from Appomattox, Virginia. We disagreed on a lot of things, but we agreed on helping animals. So we did a bill on protecting dogs, actually, from being mistreated. So we can work across the aisle, but what we see is when people take sides, and this is my team. Look, people who watch this show, when I started 21 years ago, I criticize Democrats. I criticize Republicans. I praise Republicans. You just heard me praise Liz Cheney. It's about your values, not about what team you're on. And sometimes that means taking the time to examine an issue to find out if it's right. Find out that terrorists, for example, increase inflation, increase unemployment. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Look it up yourself. Find out that Russia did invade Ukraine, just like Germany did invade Poland in 1939. You know, Hitler said that Poland invaded Germany in 1939, but the United States didn't believe him. We didn't go and tell Churchill, you haven't been thankful enough, Churchill. You should just take a ceasefire, let the Nazis take Europe, and maybe we'll just give them Scotland, and you'll keep the rest of your country. We didn't do that to him. And this idea that we're surrendering at a time when the United States is an economic powerhouse, a military powerhouse, we have all that power. What we don't have anymore is values. And if people would just bring back their values, because we are not great because we are a powerful nation. We are not great because we're a rich nation. We are great when we have human values. We are great when we are kind. We are great when we take in the huddled masses yearning to be free. That's the stuff that gives us goosebumps. We are great when we are looked to as Ronald Reagan again. I'm quoting him a lot today. Talked about the city on the hill, the idea that America stands for something. And it's not what Donald Trump is saying. All that matters is money. All that matters is power. And then we can be the biggest bullies. And then within America, he's the biggest bully, and he bullies no one more than his own supporters who go to all his get-rich schemes that help him get rich while they get poor. So this is the way to fight back, to never give up hope. If you believe in the United States of America, if you believe that we are a constitutional republic, that the rule of law should be obeyed, you got to get out there. You got to get out there and protest. You got to get out there and vote. You got to get out there and let your voice be heard.
Awesome. Mark, you are amazing, sir. We're going to get you back. Folks, Virginia is it. Let's start registering folks to vote. Look forward to the next general election here in Virginia. Brother, you're the best.